Hello everyone, this is Robert Radford and 50 Years of Chess. My next opponent, which I'm bringing to you, is a gentleman named O.Lynes, L-Y-N-E-S. This game was in 1996 and he was playing for Bath Chess Club at the time. I haven't been able to find out much about him. I will do at some point, but the game began with myself as white, and I played e4. I should imagine O.Lynes is Oliver, probably. So I'm not going to say his name. I'll just call him Mr. Lynes, because I'm not sure. So he played d6, d4, knight f6, bishop d3. The usual line is knight to c3. But I always like to play this bishop out early. Knight c6, c3, e5. Now, this is like an old Indian that my opponent is playing here. It's like the King's Indian, but without the fianchetto at this time. So I pushed the d pawn on. He played knight back to e7, knight f3, g6. So now he's going into the King's Indian proper with the fianchetto. Bishop g5, bishop g7, queen b3. This is just to prevent him from going bishop g4, pinning my knight to my queen. It's only a temporary move, but it's just while I'm getting some pieces out and things. Castle h3. So this will stop the bishop g4 when I go back if I have to. Knight d7. So he's going to come in knight c5. Probably he wants the bishop. Normally I like to keep the white square bishop, but as this is going to be a King's Indian game, the white bishop doesn't play that big a part apart from defending the pawn really on e4 in this game. So queen back to c2, knight to c5 as expected, and I played b4 immediately, hitting him to make him decide what he's going to do, and he did. Knight takes d3, queen takes f5. This is all the correct procedure with playing the King's Indian attack with black, or King's Indian defense with black, is to get those pawns moving down that king's side. Knight d2. Pawn takes, knight takes, and the inevitable bishop f5 pin is arrived. So as I play g4, he gives back his white square bishop to me as I give to him. Queen takes e4. At the moment, black has got he did have a little bit of a lead in 0.9 with the rating of what light chess is showing. So I castled after queen d7, and now it's 0.1 only in favour to him on Stockfish. He's just played rook on a to e8, a4, expanding on my queen side to gain space over there. c6, d takes c6, and b takes c6. So things are beginning to open up a little bit now. It's not so congested as it was with all the pawns in the centre. And after b takes c6, I play rook a to d1. So I'm just dropping it in on that d pawn, so he won't be able to leave that pawn and move his queen away. He could push the pawn on, which is probably a good thing to do, I don't know. Stockfish suggests that he should. He's got a 0.1, he's got a minus 1.0 advantage at the moment, so he's done a bit better than me in the opening. But he's played knight into d5. Well, he's probably, well, he's expecting me to defend this pawn, but I'm not going to. I'm going to play knight h4. So now when he plays knight takes c3, I can play queen to c4 check, which will force the knight back, and then b5. So that's the pawn that's holding up this knight at the moment. And so he's going to have to lose a pawn here now by going queen to f7 and then pawn takes pawn. So when I say lose a pawn, we're about level. I now have a +2, so I'm doing better now. He's gone knight into f4, queen takes queen, rook takes queen, bishop takes knight, and rook takes knight. And I've still got the +2 with rook takes on d6. So now I'm a pawn up and a 0.3 advantage on Stockfish. He could have took the a pawn, but he's concerned about the c pawn quite rightly, and he's gone behind it so that I can't go behind it with my rook. So I've gone rook to b1. My intention is to get both rooks onto the 7th rank and then attack him along there. I'm not trying to hold on to the pawn because I can't, so I'm playing rook to b7. He's taken a pawn with his rook on c5. Rook to d7. Now I'm attacking the bishop, which is in turn moves out to attack the knight. So that's interesting. Stockfish is suggesting g5. I'm not sure about that. That's just giving up a pawn, I would have thought, but I'm not. Who am I to argue with a computer? Anyway, I've now can take the pawn on h7. So when he takes a knight, I take the rook, which will be out of the game a little bit, but hopefully not for too long. I'm holding a 0.7 advantage with white at the moment. So now he's trying to make sure I don't get my rooks back on that rank again, and he's bringing the rook back to offer a swap, which I won't do. I've got a pawn up, and I'm going to try and keep him tied up. So as I tap that e pawn, he's with rook to b5. He's now played rook c5 to stop me. So that gives me an opportunity to play g5, and I can now get my rook into play. That's on the rook h4. So rook takes rook, pawn takes rook, and he attacks it, and I defends it with rook b4. Stockfish has given me a 1.2 plus 1.2 advantage with the white pieces at the moment, with the white position. So now he's bringing his king out, and I push my pawn on to swap that off because I don't want his king coming over and capturing that pawn. And I'm also cutting him off from advancing his king. So he's taking a look at my pawn on h3, which I can defend after rook check. He goes back, which he has to do or he loses the pawn on g6. So I'm really pleased with that because it just keeps his rook out of the game while my rook is on that file. So I move my king up to defend the pawn, and he's just trying to stop me from advancing that pawn on f2. So then I move my king up again, and here he should have played e4 as Stockfish is indicating with the arrow, but he didn't. He checked me and allowed me to bring my rook back, and a queen swap here, a rook swap here would be most favourable for me, but he didn't. He went back rook c7. So I now play rook e3, hitting that pawn on e5, and he defended it. And I push up my pawn with my 2-to-1 advantage on that side to h4. He went king f7, king g4, and then rook back to e8. I'm wondering whether that was a wasted move because before that he wasn't very far behind, but now I've got a 5.4 plus advantage with the white pieces. So Stockfish is declaring this as a one game for white. But as I've said before, when you're in a winning position, you still have to win a one game as years ago, and it's so true. The times when I was younger and I was impetuous and often thought the game was won and got cocky and so on, and then next minute I played bad moves, threw the game away, and the other opponent either got away with a draw or I lost, and it was losing 1 games. That's the worst possible thing when you lose 1 games. So 5.4 advantage, and now I pushed on that H pawn. Pawn takes pawn, king takes pawn, and rook H8 check. That's even worse doing that. He shouldn't have gone there. It would have been better to have just moved his king to G7. But he played rook check, which does nothing. I go back to G4, and he's moved his king in to E5. Now this is a blunder. Can you see why? I'll just give you a moment to see why it is. What does white do? Does he move G6? Or does he do F4? Now that wins outright because that loses his pawn on E5. And with 2 pawns connected, with 2 rooks, that is a completely won game. And that finishes it. And my opponent, Mr. Lynes, resigned at this time. Realising that he'd blundered. He just couldn't play King G6, King E6, which he did. So he knew that, and with a 9.4 plus advantage with white pieces, it is definitely won. So that was the game with Mr. Lynes from Bath, played back in 1996. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll keep on bringing some games to you as time goes on. Thank you very much. And thank you to all my subscribers and all the new ones that have just joined as well. Thank you very much for subscribing and being able to see the games. Thank you, and don't forget to put the likes. Thanks a lot.